So everybody always talks about humanization of AI content, like making AI content that sounds human. But most of the time when a AI humanizer tool or something like that is talking about humanization, what they're actually delivering is more AI slop, but it's just that is more algorithmically deceptive. It's not any better. And in fact, often they do things like lace it with swear words or misspellings or something, turn it into gibberish from a reader's standpoint. And that's completely useless if we're creating content for the purposes of promoting something or for a client's website or for something like that. And honestly, that's not necessary at all. The best strategy for humanization, and I'll credit Interest Empire on X for teaching me this back in the day, maybe about this time last year, is just to make it conversational and make it come from a source that is uniquely individual. So if it has a unique voice, then it's going to break all of the patterns that AI detectors are looking for, and it's going to just sort of naturally be more AI detector resistant. We'll say resistant because AI detectors are very heavy-handed, and sometimes they'll register, straight up human written content with no AI involvement at all is 100% AI. But consistently, you can produce content that'll either beat it or will beat it within a couple of quick edits. Just because it doesn't sound like AI, it sounds like some person. So the question then becomes, how do you get the AI to sound like somebody, or to sound not like AI and more like someone, which is really what we end up with. And the process for that is taking a sample from some source that you like, someone's article, or better, in my opinion, is taking a YouTube video or a podcast transcript or something like that. And that works really well because it's already conversational. It's just what someone sounds like when they're talking on video, and that conversational style and language can then be translated into patterns and instructions in a prompt to generate something that's not exactly like that, but certainly has those kind of elements in it. And those elements are convincing enough to beat the AI detectors and to make it sound much more human and natural to a human reader as well. So to dive into my prompt and how I go through this process, I'm going to reveal and share the actual writing assessment prompt that I use, which is pretty short, but it's very clever, and the process that I then go through afterwards to integrate that into my prompt and how I would use it in practice. So to start with, I'm going to go into my prompt repo that I keep in Cursor, and I do this so that I can use Git technology to manage versioning control as I play with it. This works best with GPT-5 thinking. It could be used with any LLM. They're all close enough that a prompt will, generally speaking, work okay from one to the rest. But GPT-5 thinking specifically has the analytical capabilities that make this really, really work. So I tend to use the role, goal, inputs, and constraints framework just as a starting point. It's pretty reliably, consistently good. And so I've used that here. The role is just a content strategist. The goal is to assess a writing sample for style, tone, and distinguishing characteristics about language delivery and other unique writing patterns. And the instructions are to create instructions for an AI content generation prompt that are comprehensive, using examples and detailed stylistic language, capturing in specific detail the nuances and unique patterns which lend the sample its conversational appeal. And the constraints are to divide this assessment into 3 parts and to give comprehensive detail to each: writing style, content tone, and content language. And then there's just a little space at the bottom under sample where you can paste in the sample. So like I said, the best source for samples is something that's already preloaded with its conversational appeal. So like a podcast or a YouTube video is a really good example of this. Let's say that we want to write an article about traveling to the Riviera Maya, and we want to load it with somebody who's got a good style, ape their style basically, and use that as a starting point for our instructions. So let's find a good video, somebody who's, talking head kind of video.
The small island has a completely different vibe from Cancun, and it is the perfect spot if you're looking for some laid-back tropical beach vibe.
Okay, so this is more what I'm looking for.
You can either make it
This is something conversational and is just like first-person perspective. So if that's the voice that we want to incorporate in our article, what we need to do then is find this video, expand the description, and down here at the bottom, there is show transcript, which opens it up here. You can click this little button here and remove the timestamps, which is convenient because then you can just copy everything and then put that into the prompt. So go back to my prompt, put that into the sample here. I'm going to take the whole thing and paste that into GPT-5 thinking. We're going to want to use thinking for this, and then paste in our prompt. hit go and wait for the analysis. Didn't take long. And we have writing style analysis. And it has got some examples how you could just straight copy and paste this in. I find that these are maybe a little too generalized and that you actually want to go through here and build the ones that you value, the ones you want to keep into more and more detailed instructions. I'll show you that in just a moment. It's okay, so it's done. So now what we would do is read through this and evaluate if we want to keep each one of these instructions, if we find that that's a part of this voice that we want to incorporate into our writing instructions. And so I won't try to explain the entire prompt to you right now because it is massive, but there are various sections in my writing prompts that I'm going to fill in based on what we get out of this. So there's a lot of rules and instructions, how long to write each type of paragraph, what the purpose is, how in-depth to be, writing level, all kinds of stuff. There's 1,500 words in this prompt. It's very long. But there are sections for writing style, content tone, and content language. And so I'm just going to replace those sections when I create a new writing prompt with what we're copying out of this prompt generation here. So you could, just for the sake of making it easy, copy all this in and then go and edit it. So that was writing style. Do some formatting here. Okay. Structure and formatting is super important with GPT-5, especially any LLM, but especially that model, in terms of giving it some direction. It takes directions and instructions very literally and doesn't intuit as much and unless you don't give any instructions. So if you give instructions, you'll take it very, very literally, which means that you need to give more instructions, more detailed with them. So this is how we go about doing that. I actually go to GPT-5 and thinking, and then ask for the types of instructions to get the outcome that I want. And then I take that much more verbose answer and I embed it in here, and then I edit it down. So let's say that we wanted to keep most of this, but maybe eliminate a few pieces that we didn't like. So I've already got this in another place. I don't need that. All of this seems right on point. So let's say that we didn't need to edit this too much and we're happy with how that sounds. Now all that we need to do is take our original sample, which I had here in this prompt, and embed that in our prompt as well. So that we have both the instructions and I have it here under style to mimic, but the example. So it can compare the instructions to the sample. And you don't necessarily need to have the whole sample. That's kind of long just from a token management perspective. So I'm just going to give it a couple of paragraphs. But in this couple of paragraphs, it's going to have some of those characteristics that are in our instruction. So can compare those and has its original example and then some new examples that is derived from its instructions, and then those instructions to follow, as well as the negative instructions of what not to do. That's very comprehensive, and it's quite good at producing results under those kind of conditions. Now, there's a lot more that you would need inside this prompt, but that in itself will help you humanize in a much more legitimate and natural way. The rest of the prompt comes down to all kinds of instructions on how you want it formatted, what the outline is, who's writing, what audience is it for, and so on. So there's a lot more to that. But just these three sections, which again, I have to give credit to someone else here. Chris Riley and his team over at Cuppa had these same three sections in their breakdown of writing assessments, and I totally stole that idea. So credit to them for that. But this prompt will get you to the same place, taking a sample from somebody that you like out on the internet, preferably a YouTube video or a podcast, converting that into writing instructions, copying the transcript and the writing instructions into the prompt, and then using the prompt, all one big thing to actually generate your articles. More next time.